Are they even on?
They're on.
You mean people heard what I just said?
I think you're loud enough, Kevin. I think you're loud enough.
1967.
So
The hotel was changing over from operators to automatics on their elevators. So there was an elevator strike going on by the elevator operators. You can imagine that happening during a WorldCon.
Oh. Yeah, they don't work anyway.
Marilyn and I barely noticed.
you know what? You always need to get here early. For these programs, you always need to get here early because if you don't, you're going to miss out.
Yeah, I know.
You're right.
Yeah, the question.
We saved a spot on the end for you, Peter.
The question is, what was your most profound sexual moment?
I'm betting that wasn't the question.
Oh, it was?
Everybody else already.
Are my wife and daughter here?
Okay.
The night we conceived Caroline.
How sweet.
I was mostly asleep, but it was
Okay.
It is still the room?
Yeah. It is now.
Yeah.
Fuego!
Outdone by Jim Butcher once again. Thank you, Landon. Thank you, Landon.
Can I have one?
Not fair, he should have two.
We've got three
The
flavors on
moderator
the
gets
table.
one. I'm Nancy Knight, and I'm director of Writers Track. And this is my 20th year. So obviously I love doing this, and as our previous conversation, the last few moments, will indicate, you never know what's going to be said in one of the that I moderate or that Kevin is on. So I'm going to ask these gentlemen to introduce themselves, and then we'll go forward with some questions that hopefully will make them a little bit uncomfortable, or maybe it'll make them a little teary.
Oh, no, it's like this group seems to care.
Okay, we'll start with you, Larry.
Okay, I'm Larry Correia. I write for Banned Books. I write a bunch of different series, and I'm just really happy to be here. I love DragonCon.
Could you just introduce yourself with a Johnny Depp line from Willy Wonka? I just happen to be here.
I got on purpose, actually.
Okay. I know, that's the hell of it is you mean it.
I do. I got a big and tall version of Willy Wonka.
Hi, I'm Jim Butcher. I'm the author of the Dresden Files, Codex Solera, and the Cinder's Buyers. DragonCon is just my favorite convention. I'm happy to be here.
I'm Larry Niven. I've been writing for 53 years now. I'm 79 years old, and I'm happy to be anywhere.
Well, I hope you're around for when you're 89, and I'm celebrating my 30th year as director of writers. Yeah, we'll do that.
I'm Kevin J. Anderson. I'm prolific. I've published 140 novels, and 56 of them were national or international bestsellers. The most important number is that this is my 24th DragonCon. And I just before this panel went up and just read my email before I came back down, and I got an email from one of my editors saying, "Dear Kevin, I hope you're having a quiet and relaxing holiday weekend." I replied, DragonCon.
Which DragonCon is this?
It's the 2017 one, Peter.
It's like
31.
34?
31. 31. 31.
Okay. Hi, I'm Peter David. I've been to 31 DragonCons. And does anyone in this room not know who I am? Okay, that was simple.
And please do not video this. If we see you, we will ask you to leave the room.
He's videoing.
Who is? Well, he's my secret best friend, and we're going to blackmail all of you based on what you say.
Not me, I kept my mouth shut.
You know how
I don't know, I wouldn't have much confidence because every single time I've asked for a video of a DragonCon panel, I'm always told we lost it, there were technical problems. So, good luck.
No, that's not going to happen. I think we're being broadcast on DragonCon TV, right?
Oh, excellent, okay.
So there are people who are not even in this room who are saying, "Who is that?" If there's anybody at this
And they all
convention-
raised their hands in the hotel room because they didn't know who Peter David was. Couldn't see him.
So let's get started and ask some questions. My great-granddaughter has one of those little swingy things, and one of the songs on there is "Morning Has Broken" by Grieg. So I'm assuming that all of your clocks, when they go off in the morning to wake you up, play "Morning Song" by Grieg. What happens to you right after that when you slam the thing off and get out of bed? What do you do first thing in the morning?
I say, who the hell set this to Morning Song by Grieg?
Morning Song by Grieg, yeah.
I roll over and take a few more minutes in bed.
I go to the bathroom. It's pretty straightforward.
It's going to be that kind of panel.
What else? I mean, honest to God.
Yeah, I get out of bed first and then I go to the bathroom.
Yeah, I'm like Steve Martin from Dirty Rotten Scoundrels. Mind if I go to the bathroom? Of course.
Poor Kathleen.
Oh, she's out of bed by 7 a.m. She's gone.
I get pestered by all the cats until I give them some food because they're all dying and I'm a horrible person. And then usually get up and I'm gonna be working out in a little while, so I start taking I gotta get my morning shake and vitamin supplements and stuff like that. I have a rigid workout routine in the morning, so.
What's an alarm clock? I set my own schedule. It's awesome. I just get up in the morning.
All right. We'll go from something funny to, what is the most touching moment in your career as a writer? If you look back, what moment brought you either to tears or to the brink of tears?
I couldn't see through Jim's magnificent mane. Sorry, I'm kind of jealous. No, it was just okay. So this is tough because every now and then, as a writer, you get like these moments where what you write means a lot to somebody, and they tell you the story of why it means a lot to them, and it hits you, and it's really hard. It's hard to talk about sometimes and to share with groups because it's personal for other people. But I've had people that have come up to me and like they've just gone through a death in their family, and it's like, thank you. I hadn't smiled or laughed since my wife died, but the other day I was listening to your audiobook and I realized I was having fun. Thank you. And stuff like that. Or guys in the hospital, recovering from something, and you're a distraction. Or every now and then you have a fan die, and you hear from the family members of what your work meant to them. And I don't want to share specifics, because like I said, it's their personal stuff. But I tell you, as a writer, it really hits you, because moments, because we're all silly people, but moments like that, it just really hits you. And those are tough.
I'll share a specific. I was invited to Israel to speak at 2 universities by some academics who can afford it, who can afford me. And one of them, at the end of a presentation, he handed me a copy of Neutron Star, my short story collection, and he said, "Here, this is for you. I've autographed it to you. I carried it with me throughout the Yom Kippur War, and it kept me sane."
Wow. Cool.
A teenage.
For me, it was a fan who wrote. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Okay. For me, it was a fan who wrote and said, "My son is dying of cancer," and this was right after Changes had come out, or not too long after Changes come out. And then they said, "My son is dying of cancer, and really wants to know what happens next in the book. Is there anything you can do for him?" And I had just finished Ghost Story, and so I said, yeah. Well, I mean, here, want to see if you like this. And then a couple months later, I heard, I would go to the hospital with him every day and sit and read. And he passed the day after we finished.
Oh.
And yeah, you hear that, and it just rips you up, because you realize what a big, bleak universe it is, and we just had each other, and you just feel so helpless. And it's like, here's my ridiculous nonsense that I do for a living, and somehow I've managed to convince people to pay for it, for what good it is. But what else can you do? You know.
A teenage boy came up to me, he was like 17 or 18, and he told me I'd saved his life. Because in an issue of X Factor, I took 2 characters, Shatterstar and Richter, and outed them, basically. I mean, writers have been hinting at that for years. But I basically said, you know what, it's the 21st century, why are we screwing around with this? And I had Shatterstar kiss Richter. And this kind of erupted over the internet. And this guy came up to me. And he basically told me that I'd saved his life because he was gay. And he had told nobody. And he was just living in such shame that he was planning to commit suicide. And then that issue of X Factor came out. Not only did he find personal validation from having 2 male superheroes loving each other, but he was also felt validation from the 99% positive reaction that move had throughout comic book fandom. And he worked up the nerve. Rather than killing himself, he told his parents that he was gay. And his mother and father's reaction was, well, at least he'll never get a girl pregnant. No, you know, like not married, you know, you'll never get a girl in trouble, as it were. And, you know, his parents were so positive about it that he was just stunned beyond belief. And he told me that if I had not done that issue, if I had not made that decision, he would very likely be dead. And he was going to leave a note with his sexuality in his suicide note that he was going to leave to his parents. I mean, he had given this a lot of thought. And I tried, you know, not to burst into tears over being told this by this guy, but I thanked him profusely and said that I was, you know, perfectly happy to have done this for him, but really I didn't do it for him, I just did it for the characters because it felt right. And he was just profusely grateful that I had done that. So, you know, when somebody comes up to you and basically says you saved their life, that really, you know, just brings your day to a complete halt as you process that.
And we all have had many of these things, and they're so touch. I've got several stories that I can never tell in public because I can't tell them. I break down. But I won't tell one of those because we've had enough of that. I've got a different one that really affected me. I was at Planet Comic-Con in Kansas City, which is it's in a convention center, so it's a gigantic show floor. And this woman comes up to me. It's like she has the word stereotyped librarian tattooed on her forehead. She's mid-40s, and she's thin, and she's stern, and she's dressed in like dark, frumpy clothes, and she's got round glasses, and she comes up to me, and she has some of my books, and she says, "Mr. Anderson, I've really enjoyed your books, and I would be honored if you would sign them for me, and thank you very much." And stands there, and I sign the books for her, and she says, "Thank you, I appreciate this," and then she walks away. And because this is an open convention center, I can watch her walk away. And she walks away about from here to like the back of the room. And when she gets that far, she stops and does. She was just holding
like that too, not with me.
That's what I did when I met Tracy Hickman.
Okay, so you are in the zone and you are writing and you
The phone rings.
Yes, and it's an obscene phone call. No.
That's too bad because I actually had an obscene phone call story, but go ahead. You want to hear my obscene phone call story?
Did they have a wrong number or?
No. I was in my early 20s. I was living on my own. Phone rings at 1 in the morning, and I pick up the phone. Now, you have to understand something. If I'm not guarding myself, my voice sounds much higher pitched, and I sound like a female. I've actually used that when I was a reporter because I would call up, "Hi, I'm calling from the Germantown Courier." "Yes, honey, what can I do for you?" We're great. So at 1 in the morning, I wasn't really conscious, and I picked up the phone and I went, "Hello?" And the guy says, "Hi, were you sleeping?" I go, "Yes." And he says, "What do your tits look like?" And I'm not processing it. And I looked down. And I said, "They're flat and hairy." And the guy hangs up. And I go back to sleep. 5 minutes later, I wake up, I go, "Holy crap!" This is in the days before caller ID. Got an obscene phone call.
Would you have called him back?
No, I really would not have it. Just, my one obscene phone call. So you were asking a question.
You're in the zone.
I'm always in the zone.
Okay. You're working hard, you're in the zone, and you kill off a character, male, female, it doesn't matter. And then 35 pages or 40 pages down the way, you go, "Oh my God, why did I do that?" What are you going to do?
Rewrite it. It's pretty straightforward. If you realize you made a mistake, go back and fix it.
I always know why I killed the character.
Yeah.
Shall I tell a quick tale?
Yeah.
I hike with Jerry Purnell and Stephen Barnes and a friend who shows up occasionally named E.B. King. We're hiking the hill behind Jerry's house. The subject of Lucy the Hammer comes up. And somebody says, "I always wanted to believe the surfer survived." And I said, I know how to save him. And they all went, write it. And I went home and thought about it for a week and realized I didn't want him alive. I know why I killed the surfer. I want him dead. So I wrote a ghost story and sold that. The analog.
Yeah. when I kill characters, it's always for a reason. I don't ever kill somebody just capriciously. So I mean, because I went to all the work to establish those people, and I'm lazy. So if they die, I mean, I want it to have an impact. I want it to mean something. So if I run it 30 or 40 pages later and there's a problem because that character's dead, the rewrite needs to happen at that point in the story.
Yeah.
Not back where the character died. So.
Yeah, backspace is a hell of a good key. Sometimes the way I saw it is you go up the wrong hill. Sometimes you just go up the wrong hill. And you get to the top of the hill, you can either keep going, but you're now in the wrong direction, or you can go back down the hill. So I just delete what I screwed up and keep going.
Yep.
Well, and part of what you're talking is deals with the writing process, because I outline everything really heavily, so I'm going to figure out that I shouldn't have killed him off in the outline stage rather than in the. There are cases where, after months of working deeply in there, that you realize that I've got plans for 4 books down the road that I'm going to need this guy alive, but I'm never at the point where I kill somebody off and a couple chapters later, oh wait, I need him. I mean, I plan ahead of time before that.
The cool thing for us fantasy guys too, we can just bring people back from the dead.
Right. Some of mine are dead to start with, so.
Did you ever do or say something, maybe in a public setting like this, that you, several hours later, perhaps in the bar down upstairs, decided you shouldn't have done or said?
Yes.
Yes.
I say stupid crap constantly.
Yeah, I like to warn people that I'm an unreliable narrator. So you can never really trust anything I say at a panel.
I was picking a fight with the young adult track before the show.
We hope they're not watching.
Young adult track is always watching. Only you can stop young adult track. And I'll probably regret that in an hour.
My next new project is young adult. All right, we are foes, Grant.
Maybe you've experienced long waits in an emergency room at the hospital, and maybe you've been told that the reason you've got the long waits is people are coming into the emergency room because they can't afford to pay a doctor, and they don't have to pay out of it. And this happened to me. I had a broken finger from a racquetball game, and I waited like 7-9 hours before anyone looked at it. Bothered me. Now I'm speaking semi-public at a Washington D.C. event, and we're just talking things around. And I said, I know how to cure this. I said, spread the rumor among the people, the people who visit without wanting to, who visit just because they've got something wrong with them and they don't want to pay for it. Spread the rumor that many of those who go in don't come out. or get bankrupt. And I've been told I'm a racist. Oh well.
Oh yeah, I've been told I'm a racist. I hate Catholics. I hate Jews, which is interesting because I'm Jewish and my wife is Catholic. I've been told I hate gays, which was entertaining because people were saying we should boycott Peter David's work at the exact same time that GLAAD was giving me a GLAAD Media Award for my portrayal of gays. So, you know, I pretty much hate everybody.
My fans literally call me the International Lord of Hate for fun.
Well, see, I intentionally don't do any kind of politics on my Facebook page or anything.
Why?
Unlike certain people that
Notice Larry Correia sitting on the right, the right side.
So Larry Correia, of course.
Every
He's the
Friday, I have
international
a
lord
thing
of
called,
hate.
every Friday I have a thing called Freak Out Friday on my website, in which I talk about what idiocy Trump has done this week.
Okay, so the reason I don't talk politics, well, no, I mean, I used to, and I had one that really kind of affected. This was what, the 2008 election or something. Was when the Soviet Mir station was slowly burning up in the atmosphere and crashing, but they didn't quite know when it was going to come down, where it was going to hit, and there was sort of like this international, the sky is falling kind of thing. And I had what I thought was a really funny tweet. I put up there that scientists are arguing over exactly when and where the Mir station is going to burn up in the atmosphere, and meanwhile, insert stupid presidential candidate name, and I won't mention the name. Meanwhile, this candidate disputes evidence that the Earth is round. I thought it was funny. About 7 seconds later, one of my really devoted fans who has read everything of mine ever, who tweets all the time about how much he likes my stuff. 7 seconds later, I got the, "You liberal, racist, idiotic, pinko asshole, I'm never ever reading one of your books again," and he unfriended me and I never heard from him since.
Wow.
And I thought, you know, it wasn't that funny of a tweet. And I don't need to do that anymore, so I just sort of stopped.
No, you're doing exactly right. You want to get rid of such readers.
No, because they buy books, and I might sort of insidiously alter their thinking.
Your attitude is completely wrong.
I love it, Larry Niven.
Reading Larry Niven is a privilege.
Behold my field, it is barren of.
Yes. Well, I'm not going to argue with Larry on that one.
Plus, Kevin, for all you know, that tweet could have had 5 people going, "Wow, that's really hilarious. Who's this guy again? What is he published? I gotta check this out." You never know what reactions your stuff's gonna have.
What fantasy world are you living in? No, when I was doing my political arguments, I just went, you know, I just spent Sunday arguing with 12 people about whether there should be birth control or not, and you know, I could have written 3 chapters in that time. So,
Kevin, you could have wrote a book in that time. Let's be honest.
I know.
Everybody up here, you go beast mode, man. We all stand in awe of your productivity, and we're not slackers. None of us are scrubs.
I'm kind of a slacker.
Do you have a secondary character in all of the books you've written? Do you have one that you look back on and that secondary character is your very favorite of all time? And if so, why is that character your favorite?
It's a great question. No. I love my main characters and I love my secondary characters. I try to do justice to all of them, and they all serve functions within the story. So, you know, I mean, if they're a secondary character, they're there for a reason, and they're doing their job. And I never say, like, "Oh, I should do such and such," because if that occurs to me, I'll do it in the next book I write.
I had a kind of a fun one where in my Saga of Seven Sons, this 7-volume long Game of Thrones with planets, except I finished mine. So in book 1, there was a charity auction. And I said, sure, whoever wins the charity auction, I'll be happy to Tuckerize it. I'll make up a character and use their name for it. And this person won the auction, and it was David and Linda. Their last name was Lotze, Lotze, I think. And so I made up a character named Davlin Lotze. And I went, cool, it's this little, he's kind of like this spy who sneaks in and does something in chapter 14. and that got their name in there. But that character turned out to be useful later in the book, and then in book 2, and then in book 3, and became a main character in book 4, and book 5, and really and truly was in all 7 books, a very important character. And then I found out later that the person who actually won and got it named after him was a total mundane and did it for fun and has never read the books.
There was a couple named Twerdal, and I know nothing about them. They won a charity auction to appear in a book, and I tried to get in contact with them, have dinner together somewhere. I could learn a little more about them, so I could put them in a book. Nothing. I got no data. I put them in a book called Destiny's Road as 200 Years Dead. No data needed. They just went off down Destiny's Road and disappeared 200 years ago.
Probably the favorite secondary character I ever got to write wasn't actually one of my characters. I was writing a Spider-Man book for Marvel. And I decided to write the Rhino in, and the Rhino, he was a frenemy of Spider-Man in that book, and they both had a common enemy, so they had to band together against the enemy. And the Rhino had been blinded and was going to get killed, and so Parker rescued him and drags him back to his apartment. The Rhino just assumes that because he's been defeated by Spider-Man over and over and over, he always gets defeated by Spider-Man. So there's got to be some level of hero worship there. I mean, kind of a love-hate thing. So the Rhino just assumes that he's been taken to Spider-Man's billionaire secret lair. He's on the couch in Aunt May's apartment, but he thinks he's in the secret lair. He thinks that Mary Jane must be his incredibly sexy major domo.
I'll give him that.
And he's talking to Mary Jane, and he's complaining about his life, and he's like, the first thing I do when I get superpowers, I have superpowers, I go into professional wrestling. What kind of idiot does that? And Spider-Man's just sitting here like this. And Mary Jane's like pointing at him and covering up a laugh the entire time. Then I get costumes stuck on body. What kind of loser gets costumes stuck on body like that? And all these things that Spider-Man actually did, and they had kind of a very parallel road, and the Rhino's just there mourning how awful his life has been, and now I'm stuck with this stupid hat because branding. I tried to work as mercenary, and some South American dictator refused to pay me, so I had to throw his bulge into his living room. But if I'd had a hat, that would not have been necessary, like that. And I'm getting to write all that. And here's the Rhino having tea on Aunt May's couch and bemoaning his life while Peter Parker's feeling humiliated. Yes, that's how the universe did. Thank you, Rhino. Thank you, Alexi, for helping me deal with Peter Parker appropriately.
You love Krasnov.
Yeah, exactly.
I got so a secondary character that kind of took on a life of their own, and this is going to sound a little silly, Wendell the Manatee. For those of you who don't understand the Who, but yeah, no, so was a minor throwaway character I did in a silly Christmas short where this manatee shows up in his monster truck to save the day against the Christmas ninjas. It's just the stupidest thing I've ever written. This character has gone on to become my official spokesman of my company. Because he's an eloquent manatee who speaks no English. And there's like this giant freaking Wendell sub-industry now. And every panel I go to, there's plushy Wendells and stuff. It's the weirdest damn thing. And on the red shirts, I do a stupid number of charity red shirts. I was telling these guys before we started, I'm stuck for like the next 6 years. Every character that shows up in one of my books is probably a red shirt, because I'm a sucker for doing that for charity. But why do you guys all have to be freaking named Mark?
It's the same guy every time.
I wish he just would have wrote one big check and I would have made him a main star.
Lucky to get $20.
Having had a little time to think about it, I actually can think of one secondary character who kind of took on a life of her own, and that was Layla Miller, who was a character in X Factor. who started out as this like 11-year-old girl who kept saying she knows stuff. And that was all she did. She said, I know stuff. And she's hanging out with X Factor. And then in like the 3rd or 4th issue, their headquarters is invaded. And Layla, simply because she knows everything that's going to happen, sets it up so that the invader winds up. I established earlier on that there was a leak in the bathroom, and Layla tricks him into stepping onto a puddle and dropping electric wires onto the puddle. And the guy is electrocuted, and he's lying there on the ground, and all the lights are out, and Layla's standing there with a flashlight, and she's saying, yes, you're going to be dying in about 30 seconds. Your wife will say that she's upset, but she's really not, because she's having an affair with the mailman, but your mother will miss you. And he says, who are you? And she says, and the final panel, she's got the flashlight to her face, and she says, I'm Layla Miller. I know stuff. And everyone in America read that and went, oh, holy crap. And from then on, Layla just took off. The fans loved her, and I just realized she had tremendous versatility in what I could do with her. So yeah, Layla was a terrific character. I didn't create her, but she's a great character.
What is the most preposterous thing you have ever written?
For a Foggy Night is a short story, which I will now give you a spoiler for. It turns out it's a bar story, and the guy next to the main character is claiming that if you walk into a fog, a fog is the visible sign of a merging of time tracks. You can walk into any place if you walk into a fog. Fog is just the bending of light by water droplets. Nonsense. Water is transparent. I can make you believe that for the duration of a short story.
I wrote an essay in which I put forth the theory that Ebenezer Scrooge was mutant. And that his power was to summon ghosts. Now, I pulled this all from Dickens, because when the ghost of Christmas Past brings Ebenezer to see his younger self, he describes how a chorus of literary figures are walking past the young Scrooge. And he just says, oh yeah, I see this character and this character, and they're all walking past him. And he doesn't seem to think that that's remotely odd, that all these characters are walking past. And then Ebenezer's sister shows up, and she says, Ebenezer, you are to come home. Daddy, has changed completely, and now he wants you to live with us. Isn't that wonderful? And young Ebenezer is very pleased. And I thought, of course, the young Ebenezer created ghosts to haunt his father until his father had the same epiphany that Scrooge himself would have as an old man, which is, basically, don't be a dick. And those ghosts came from Ebenezer's young mind. He set them at his father changed his personality, and he said, okay, have the boy brought home from the school, everything's going to be different now. So when we finally got to A Christmas Carol, Ebenezer created ghosts to haunt himself. So I said it wasn't mysticism or anything, it was Ebenezer Scrooge's mutant power. And the more I think about that, the more I think I'm going to write a short story in which we show what happened to Ebenezer's dad. And what he was like, and why these ghosts came at him, and what they did, and how that changed him around so that he brought his son home. So maybe it's actually not that preposterous.
Well, I do it intentionally a lot. I write a lot of big epic science fiction and epic fantasy, but I also really need to be stupid sometimes. And I've got an entire series of Dan Shamble Zombie PI, which is just really ridiculous stories with a zombie private investigator solving crimes with ghosts and werewolves and
They're
mummies.
awesome.
And my last novel was called Slimy Underbelly, and the one I just finished, which will be out in November, is called Tastes Like Chicken. The city being terrorized by a flock of demon-possessed feral chickens.
You have the first book here at the convention?
Yep. Well, we have all. There's been four novels and one short story collection. I have them all. You want one?
Yeah, sure.
All right, I'll get you one. Barbecue tonight. I'll bring one.
Oh, okay.
See there, that's how business gets done. And just, I mean, all of this is just utterly ridiculous, but that's in the world. It's all consistent within the world. And his partner's a bleeding heart lawyer who wants justice for the monsters. And you know, like the first book, a mummy comes in and he wants to sue to be emancipated from the museum because he's a person, damn it, not property. And once you accept that it's preposterous, then you go with it.
For me, it was probably an essay I wrote explaining why Elrond was actually the biggest villain in The Lord of the Rings. Starting with not kicking Elendil into the lava just immediately when or not Elendil, Isildur. Not kicking Isildur into the lava immediately upon the defeat of Sauron. You know, when he wouldn't get rid of the One Ring. But I waxed long and eloquent. I mean, and I pulled out the big blue language and everything for that one. That was fun.
My silliest one ever actually has done okay. It was The Adventures of Tom Stranger, interdimensional insurance agent. And so what it is Tom is across the multiverse. Tom is the insurance agent that insures whenever universes collide, whenever alternate realities collide. Tom Stranger is there to provide superior customer service. And it started out as this really stupid short story, the goofiest damn thing I ever wrote. Well, during it, I decided to put Adam Baldwin from Firefly as the president of the United States. And he's hilarious. And so years later, Audible asked me to make this into an exclusive for them, and we got Adam Baldwin to narrate. President Adam Baldwin. It's funny, so when he narrates himself as the president, he uses this Jane Cobb voice. And when he narrates Tom Stranger, he narrates as Green Lantern, basically, and provides customer service. And Wendell the Manatee stars in it, hence the Hoon, and so Adam voices a manatee. And it is the goofiest damn thing I've ever written, but the second one comes out in December.
In your career, has there been a project that you absolutely did not want to do and couldn't reasonably refuse to do it, and it turned out to be a favorite thing?
That's specific.
Yeah.
Well, you know.
No, I have something kind of close to it. Pocketbooks wanted me to do a Star Trek novel. They wanted me to do an original Star Trek novel to basically fill in a gap. Now, the thing was that at the time, all plots had to be approved by a man whose show though nameless, Richard Arnold. And Richard had a huge hate-on for me. So...
Not just you.
Oh, that's true, but yeah, me. So what I did was I came up with 3 different outlines, wrote them in 3 different styles, in 3 different typefaces. One was absolutely fantastic, one was okay, and one was basically an agglomeration of Star Trek cliches. And we sent all 3 of them to Richard. And I'm told, because we had people inside the offices, that he was sitting at his desk holding one in one hand, one in another, and one was on the desk in front of him, and he's going, I know one of these is from Peter David. He wound up selecting The one that was an agglomeration of Star Trek cliches. And I had to write it. And it actually turned out to be a fairly decent book. It was called The Rift. And it actually, turned out pretty much okay. I would have loved to do one of the other ones, but, they paid me good money for it, and I wrote it, and it actually turned out all right. Have I ever written anything that well, yeah. Also, I wrote the novelization of The Return of Swamp Thing. And they sent me the script for this thing, and I'm reading it, and by halfway through, blood was coming out of my eyeballs. And I get to the end of it, and I go, this is terrible. I have two choices here. I either just go write a he said, she said novelization and don't have my name on it, or if my name's going to be on it, I have to change it. And I didn't know we weren't allowed to change novelizations. So I changed it. I threw out scenes I didn't like. I trimmed back and changed ones that I did like. I completely changed the ending. I mean, I used an ending that Alan Moore had in an issue of Swamp Thing. I just did it completely differently. And we sent the novelization off to the producers, a guy named Michael Uslan, and Michael's response was, wow, I wish we'd filmed this.
Well, the novelizations are one of those where we take them as jobs. Most of the time, we don't get to read the script beforehand. They go, hey, you want to write the novelization of this movie that sounds really cool? And we go, yeah. And then you get the script and go, I had two things I did. One, there was a German publisher that wanted to break into U.S. publishing, and they got the rights to the biggest movie. This was going to be bigger than Star Wars. This was not Avatar. This was like the biggest movie ever that MGM was releasing. It's called Supernova. And it's going to be huge. It's going to make hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars, and we want you, Kevin, to write the novelization of it. And I went, well, if it's going to be that big, then you can pay me. I didn't say this, but I quoted 3 times my normal rate, and they said yes. I went, oh, now I'm really in this. And then I get the script, and this is. For those of you who, I hope you don't know this movie, but for those of you this was one of those where it was supposed to come out in summer, and then in fall, and then in winter, and then in spring, because they keep taking it back and recutting it because it just doesn't work. Well, I get the script, and I'm reading it, and I did get paid 3 times my normal rate, and I'm going through it. But here's very, very quick. It's a mining station in an ice moon somewhere off in the galaxy, and our characters are aboard a medical starship called the Florence Nightingale, and they get called as an emergency because something weird's going on in this ice planet. And they found an alien artifact that makes people go crazy, and that's all fine. And what happens at the end is our characters, they get the artifact, and it's causing all kinds of problems, so they fly and they throw it into the sun where it gets burned up in the sun. Hooray. The last page of the script is, everybody's relieved we saved the world, everybody's happy, and we're going to fly off and live happily ever after. And then the alien artifact goes critical, it explodes the sun and destroys the universe, all life is wiped out, the end. I'm not kidding.
Every year.
Yes. That was the last page of the script. That was
the sun blows up and destroys the universe?
This was a heck of an alien artifact. So I went to them and I said, I can't write this ending. It's terrible. They go, but you signed up for it. You have to write the book that's in the script. I said, but my name's going on the cover of this, and when my fans get to the end with it, they're going to throw the book against the wall and never read my books again, so I cannot have this ending. Oh, but you have to write what's in the script. And here was our solution, because I argued back and forth, that I did have to write everything that was in the script, but I could leave the last page of the script off if I wanted. So we ended it with the happily ever after thing. And guess what? When they recut the movie and came out, it wasn't in there either.
I don't story. I'm forced to write anything.
Yeah, I elected to write something I didn't want to write in college. Because my professor had been trying to get me to change what I was doing, because I was an epic fantasy writer. That's what I was, and so I'd just written a bunch of epic fantasies. Oh my God, were they awful! I wouldn't have made Osama bin Laden read one of those. It was terrible. But she's like, well, you're always, lately you've been talking about this Buffy the Vampire Slayer and Babylon 5. Maybe you should try something that's more like urban fantasy or maybe more like science fiction. And I'm like, no, I'm an epic fantasy writer. That's what I do. And but finally one semester, and plus she was trying to teach me all these things about writing, which I was ignoring because I had a bachelor's degree in English literature. With an emphasis in creative writing, no less. Whereas she had merely published 40 novels. So you know, I was doing a lot of arguing because I thought I knew a lot. And finally I decided that I was going to prove her wrong. And the means that I chose to prove her wrong with was I was going to do exactly what she told me to do. I was going to write what she wanted me to write from the first person viewpoint, no less. And I was going to fill out her little forms and do outlines and do all these rigid little storycraft construction things she'd been insisting were important. And at the end of that, and I'd write a novel of it, and then she would see what cookie cutter pablum crap would emerge from that kind of process. And I wrote the first book of the Dresden Files. Which clearly showed her.
You should send her one of the awards.
I really should. I put her in the dedication of my first published book. You know, she's in there for my dad who taught me everything I need to know about living.
You got 3 of them there, right?
Well,
No, hey, back off,
Why did you sell? You got 2. I mean,
yeah, well, Larry got his on a technicality, I guess. But I don't want to send it to Debbie, make him feel bad. And Bridget's right there.
Oh, Jim's just saying that because I beat him last year.
Oh, he earned it last year. That was a good book.
It was a good book. This one's actually going to be for John Ringer. It's a collaboration. He did most of the work. So, no, I've been lucky in that I liked all my stuff, and even at the time that I'm working on it, people always ask, like, what's your most favorite book or what's your least favorite book? It's like asking who your favorite kid is. It changes any given day.
Larry's been reading that book, Parenting by Niccolo Machiavelli.
Compete for my love. No, but like at any given time, honestly, my least favorite book is the one I'm working on, and my favorite book is the one I just finished. Because you're done with it and you're happy it's out the door. So no, but I've never had one that I got roped into that I hate. I have done some IP writing in other people's universes, but on those it was more because I really liked the universe, and they were happy to have me there, and they gave me a lot of freedom. So I've been pretty lucky. I've never done any novelizations because I would probably really screw that up.
Have you ever had, or do you currently have, a really obnoxious fan, and how do you deal with it?
they tend to show up on my website, and I usually disembowel them. Which is a cool thing, which basically it leaves their comment up there, except all the vowels are gone.
I own a mountain and a backhoe.
I get a pretty good class of readers. But 50 years ago, there was a guy who read a short story of mine called, Mars with Craters. A guy tries to destroy the Mars base he is a part of because he has been found out as gay. the letter was from a guy who thought I must be a gay basher. The gay basher was the character who followed him and attempted to kill him. I wrote a letter back saying, essentially, we in the field have a term for people who think, for readers who think that the characters in the story are speaking for the writer. We call them idiots.
Yeah.
Idiots.
Well, when you write in, like Peter and I especially, when you write in Star Trek, Star Wars, X-Files, whatever, you get a lot of the super fans who hate your work, not because they don't like your work, it's because they should have been the one chosen to write the book. And one of my favorite ones is when my second Star Wars book came out, Dark Apprentice, and there's a scene where Lando Calrissian and Chewbacca have to go and rescue Han Solo, who's been imprisoned in the spice mines of Kessel. Great book, go read it. And they're kind of hiding in the shadows of the asteroid, trying to figure out how they can get in, and Lando Calrissian says, "I'd really prefer a straight-up fight, Chewie. I don't like all this skulking around." I got a 7-page letter from a fan explaining that Lando Calrissian would never use the word skulking. To which I replied, I said, "Oh, but you're wrong, because he says it right there on page 48 of my book." And Lucasfilm approved it.
I wrote a Star Trek novel called The Captain's Daughter, and some guy on Usenet wrote this scathing review of it, and I read it over and I shrugged and I said, "Okay, well, I hope you like the next one better." Several days later, he starts a new thread. Peter David doesn't give a damn about the fans. Oh. Why did he start this thread? Because I had not commented on his review of The Captain's Daughter. Now, of course, if I had commented on it, it would have been, Peter David is so thin-skinned that he has to go after negative reviewers on the internet. So that taught a major lesson to me, which was I might as well do what I want, because there are going to be fans who are going to put negative connotations on it no matter what you say or do. And you cannot get yourself nuts about it, or you're not going to be able to do this job.
Okay, there's this thing, they always tell writers, don't respond to your negative reviews, never respond to your 1-star reviews, right? Except when I do, it's hilarious. So, do you remember this, Jim? Okay, so one time, there was this one where it was from Monster Hunter, and I got this 1-star review, and it's like, you know, took the 1-star review, and it says, if you want to read good epic fantasy, read Jim Butcher. Well, I hadn't met Jim yet, but like the day before, Jim had just posted a review of Monster Hunter, and he really liked it. I go, unfortunately, Jim Butcher disagrees with you. Boom! If you're writing in urban fantasy, you always get compared to Jim. And so I dropped that bomb a couple times. And one time, this last year, there was a review that said, it's militant right-wing gun porn for crazy people. And I go, if you want to read good epic fantasy, read Jim Butcher. And so, but Jim has a short story coming out in the Monster Hunter universe next month. So I responded, well, luckily Jim Butcher seems to be fond of right-wing gun nut porn. And check out his story in the upcoming Monster Hunter Files anthology. And so I always reply with the most obtuse way. My favorite one, though, was like, you'd be better off reading a magazine. And I was like, I recommend Cat Fancy. And I put a link to Cat Fancy. And a picture of the cat. So I just reply as stupidly and obtusely as possible. It's hilarious.
I don't really regard the trolls online as particularly obnoxious, because if you do anything, someone's going to hate it, and that. It doesn't matter what you do. You can't do anything in the public eye at all without someone being upset about it. So okay, somebody's going to be upset. That's cool. You can go over there and be upset, and I'm just going to go and do what I do. More obnoxious is the fan who like digs into your own stuff and then throws it back at you and has all these questions and is way more into it than you are. Priscilla, could you stand, please? chosen method of dealing with such people is to recruit them. I mean, my gosh, because she was so much more into the stuff and into the continuity and everything of the universe than I was, because for her it was her fun, and for me it was my job. And you know, Ender's Game taught us anything. It was that you do your fun way harder than you do your job. And so I'm like, okay, you know what? I bet this can work out. So and that was kind of how that was really how my beta list of readers kind of got started. But yeah, I mean, all the people who are involved in that, there's incredibly useful energy there to be used. So you know, I like to talk to them and work with them about that. If somebody's upset about my book online, whatever, that's going to happen. But yeah, I mean, occasionally you do get somebody who's not really obnoxious but weird. Don't worry too much about being weird around me though, because if you aren't following me into the bathroom to continue a conversation while I am urinating, you don't even ping my radar. Don't worry about it.
They will follow you and sit down in the next stall. They start telling you about their book. And you're like, I'm trying to poop.
And then they slide it under. Since you've got reading time right now.
Yeah, the guy did that to
You are
me.
just suave upon
He slid a comic book. I was in the bathroom in the stall. The guy slid a comic book under it. And I said, I'm going to pee on that. He slid it right back down.
We have like a minute.
Okay, we got the important stuff out of the way.
Yeah, we've got all the body stuff out of the way. One piece of advice you would give an aspiring writer.
Read my book on writing. I'm totally serious. Writing for Comics and Graphic Novels by Peter David. You can find it on Amazon for like 99 cents from somebody. And that's everything that I could possibly tell you about writing.
Think of writing like you're trying out for the Olympic sports. You have to practice and practice and get better, and you still might not make the Olympic team.
There are some advantages to being a writer. You work indoors, sitting down, no heavy lifting, as Jerry keeps pointing out. The thing to remember is you're doing this for fun.
Settle in for the long haul. Whatever you need to do, if you're setting out to become a writer, bear in mind that there are occasionally people who write their first manuscript and off they go, and those are the lottery winners. Most of the writers who get in, they work at it for a long time. So whatever you need to do to keep yourself going for the long time, for the long haul, that's kind of what you need to do to get in.
The single most important thing to becoming a successful professional writer is we got to kick the ass of the young adult track. Please come put money in the bucket. It's for a good cause. Thank you. She is now her next book. Boom! It's gonna blow up huge. Watch.
So thank you very much to the panelists. You are absolutely fabulous. I'm very sure that you got information today on these people that you would never, ever get anywhere else. So come to Writer's Track and give money, and we thank you all. You're a fabulous audience. Come back next time.
If anyone wants me to autograph stuff, I'm going to be at my table at Artist Alley, which is over the ass end of nowhere.